Welcome to the Growth Guide podcast. I'm your host, Clint Murphy. Every week, I talk to authors, subject matter experts, and millionaire mentors to share the lessons that will help you and me be better, achieve more, and become financially free. Today, I had an amazing conversation with Oonagh Duncan, a multi-award winning fitness instructor and founder of the Feel Good movement, which recognizes that fitness is not about a number on a scale. It's about feeling good about ourselves. Oonagh is the author of Healthy as Fuck, the habits you need to get lean, stay healthy, and kick ass at life. If you want to get healthy like me, this is a must listen, and it's a lot of fun. Enjoy the show. Oonagh, welcome to the Growth Guide podcast. Where I'd love to start our conversation is if you could give our listeners who may not have met you yet a brief introduction to who you are, and then we'll dive right into your book.
Sure. My name is Oonagh Duncan, and I am the founder and CEO of a company called Fit Feels Good. So you can find me at fitfeelsgood.com. And we are all about the feel good movement. And what I mean by that is the recognition that wellness is about more than the number on the scale, obviously. It's really all about feeling good. So for example, if you think that you want to lose, 20 pounds or whatever, what you really want is the feeling you think you're going to have at 20 pounds. Basically, you just want to feel good. And so I believe that feeling good is not only the ultimate outcome that we all want, but it is the method by which we must get there. We're never going to get to feeling good in a way that makes us not feel good. So that's why I'm like, this is a feel good movement, and I try and coach people. My area of specific expertise is women in their 40s and 50s to help them feel good now in order to get to their goals.
And one of the things that jumps out at me as you say that is this idea, and whether it's our weight, whether it's money, whatever it is, we always think that that's what we want. And you talk about the fact that no, that's not what you want. You want the feeling, which you just mentioned, that comes that you, and here's the key part, you think you're going to have when you get that. Can you really unpack that? Because that's such a key part of any of these journeys.
Well, this is the thing, and you've got to practice it now. So this is when a tricky part that my clients have is they think, oh, Oonagh, but if I accept and love my body the way it is right now, well, then I won't be motivated to make changes. And I'm like, it never works that way. We think we have to play drill sergeant with ourselves. And if we bully ourselves and shame ourselves into doing the right thing, then we'll do it. But actually, all the research shows that's not true at all. If you bully yourself and shame yourself, well, you may last for a little bit, but eventually you're just going to fall back to your self-soothing mechanisms, which if you are overweight is probably over-consuming food, right? And so actually, here is the vibe that you need. You look in the mirror, and you think, I absolutely am. I love and accept myself right now. I feel amazing. And I'm really excited for where I'm going. And these two things are not in opposition. You can love and accept yourself absolutely right now and be excited for where you're going, for all the potential, the unmet potential that you have.
So as you say that, how important is the choice in the language people are using? So for example, you were talking about people being dictators to themselves. I need to lose weight. I have to, I must, versus I choose to lose weight. What does that look like for people?
Oh my gosh. I think this is the language that people use is so important. So for example, in my programs, I never let people say one of the most common terms, which is I fell off the wagon this weekend, or I went off the rails. And I'm like, wait a second. If you say I fell off the rails, it's like you're describing your life as this runaway train on which you have zero control, right? Instead of being like, I deprioritized exercise last week. That is you saying I made a conscious choice to deprioritize exercise last week. That puts you in control instead of saying I fell off the wagon. That is so passive, and it's like, oh, oops, I had no control. If you keep saying that to yourself, you're going to start believing that. Whereas if you say something like, I chose to have 5 pints of beer at my friend's party or whatever, then you can empower yourself to choose differently next time if you want to. So you're putting yourself in the driver's seat rather than saying like, whoops, I fell off the wagon. I fell off the rails. I had no choice, because you're just going to reinforce that narrative.
And as soon as you do that, when you're talking about the wagon or the rails, you're implying there's something that you're on that ultimately you have to get off. I mean, you're not going to stay on a wagon forever.
Right.
So you're implying I'm on this for a period of time and then I'm going to jump off. And when you jump off, you go right back to your old ways.
Totally. That's actually a great distinction. I've never thought of that. That's kind of like one of the biggest distinctions is the American paperback version of my book is called Ditch the Diet. And so, I often get people asking me, so what is the difference? Because I do recommend having some structure in the way people eat. And I say things like, if you're not hungry for vegetables, you're not hungry. That's a craving. And sometimes people are like, whoa. How is this different than a diet then? And one of the distinctions there is that a diet is a temporary thing that you're doing in order to lose weight. And then once you've lost weight, you're going to go back to normal. If you've got that mindset, then you probably aren't, you're on a diet. And statistics show that about 99% of people who go on a diet to lose weight end up gaining it all back because they've got this mentality of, I can't wait to get back to normal.
Exactly. And so as we talk about stats, some sobering stats, 75 million Americans are trying to lose weight. Most of us are overweight and 30% of North Americans are clinically obese. And the only thing that fixes that in a sustainable way is changing our everyday behaviors. So now that I've wound that up and got it going there, can you take our listeners through those sobering stats and why it's so important that we focus on our behaviors in a sustainable way versus, as you said, a temporary diet that's going to yo-yo us back to where we were?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. So if you look down at your body right now, the beautiful, amazing body that you have in this moment, it is the result of two things. It's the result of your genetics, which you can't do anything about, and your habits, the things that you do every day. So I'm sure that most of your listeners have probably realized that you can go on a diet for a week and it doesn't completely change your body. You can do a whole bunch of push-ups one day in a feat of heroism and you're not suddenly really strong. Unfortunately, the way our bodies work is it wants steady consistency, right? You just have to get control of your habits. Our habits are really running the show. About 40% of what we do, of our actions, are just automated habits. And so if we can take conscious control and to design these habits, that's when we are going to become a different person. And because it's really, there's an Aristotle quote, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, it is a habit. So really the biggest difference between someone who's on a diet and someone who's got shut up. Oh, look at that. Listeners, he just showed me that he's got this quote right behind him on his office. Oh, that's so fun. I love that. I live by that because it really is about a shift of identity, right? You're not on a diet, you're changing who you are. So here's another example. Because people are sometimes like, I don't know if I'm on a diet or if I really have a healthy lifestyle. And I'm like, okay, here's the quiz. Are you going to eat healthy 3 Tuesdays from now? Now, if you're on a diet, you'd be like, if I'm at home, if I don't have a special occasion, if I got grocery, yeah, probably. But if you are just a healthy eater and someone says you're going to eat healthy 3 Tuesdays from now, you'd be like, of course, I'm a healthy eater. I always eat healthy. That's just what I do. It doesn't matter. I could be at the airport. I could have insomnia. I could be at a friend's birthday party. I just eat healthy. It's who I am. So, and it's who you are when it is your habit. When you watch yourself consistently do it every single day.
Yeah. And you reinforce it. And it's so important. I always look at it. Of course, our genetics come into play. And I know personally from a genetic standpoint, I'm pretty hardwired to gain weight very easily. And some family members are like, well, it's my genetics.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you can have some habits that counteract those genetics. Like, you don't need to be 400 pounds. You don't need to be 350 plus pounds. That's not healthy. That will lead to you dying early. Like, cut out X, cut out Y, go for a walk.
Yeah.
Maybe lift some weights. And so we're going to talk a lot about that. And I just love this idea that, hey, it is two things, and one of them you can do something about. And when we talk about the genetics and habits, the other thing that I love you talk about, because I draw this at work for people all the time as it relates to your career, whether it's money, whether it's title. We have two things. We have results on one axis and we have effort on the other axis.
Yes.
And it's okay to be anywhere on that graph you want. The problem is when you want something and it requires being a certain place on the graph, but you're only willing to do much less than that. And you don't reconcile the two. So can you talk about your graph that we're talking about, perception versus reality, and the frustrations that generates in people, and clue the listener in on what I'm talking about?
Yeah, totally. That's exactly where I wanted to go next, because, when you talk about your family members, so if you have a genetic predisposition towards carrying excess weight, so on your effort to results chart or graph, it may require more effort for people with that genetic predisposition than not. I'll give you an example. So there was a woman who I knew who was obese. And what she did one day, she quit drinking pop, because she used to have several, probably 8 big cans of pop a day or bottles. And she started walking to school. And in just doing those two things, she lost probably about 100 pounds. And, everyone was so excited for her. And then she got so much affirmation about that she started to be like, okay, oh my God, I want to keep going on this. So then she started to go hardcore. I think at the time it was the 90s, started to go Atkins. So same keto, it's the same thing. So so much so she pick out the croutons in her salad and all that sort of stuff. And, ask if there's any sugar in the salad dressing. And so she's really, really conscious about it. And in doing that, hyper in the really hardcore exercise, so in really ramping it up, she probably lost another 20 pounds. Okay. So on her effort to results graph, effort, no pop, and walking to school got her to a certain level. And then an exponentially different amount of effort got her a little bit further. So what happened was that she found she could not sustain the effort that was required to keep her in, what she called, when she was dieting that hardcore, she got to feel like she's like, I'm one of the skinny girls, because she'd always been obese. And so for her to maintain skinny girl results, the effort she had to put in was huge. But to maintain average body composition, she just had to lay off the pop and start walking. She probably walked about, 10K a day. It was significant walking. So that is her effort to results ratio. Now, here's the thing. Hers could be totally different. Someone else could not drink pop and walk that much and nothing would happen, because they are coming from a completely different background, completely different genetics. So what has to happen is everyone has to plot their own effort to results ratio and figure out, or graph. You can choose either one. You can choose the results you want, and then you just need to make your peace with the effort that's required to maintain those results. Or you choose the effort that you are willing to give, and then you got to make your peace with the result of that effort. And both options are fine. The important part is the peace, and that's what you got to work on.
And that piece is because if you don't reconcile whether it's the results and the effort you're willing to do, or the effort you're willing to do and the results you'll get, and you don't reconcile that, then that's where the frustration and the depression comes in, because, I want it to look like this. Yeah. Well, but you weren't willing to do what it took to look like that.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And that discomfort, that space between the amount of effort we're willing to give and the results that we want, that is the discomfort. That's the nagging thing, because that's what lives in our head, the constant beating ourselves up and the looking at yourself in the mirror and all my roles and all that sort of stuff. That is where that lives. But if you can just make your peace with sometimes people are like, I'm skinny and I'm happy with it, but goddamn, why do I have to keep working so hard? And I never get to eat cake, and everyone else gets to eat cake, but I don't get to, or whatever. If you want that body, you just got to be fine with, you don't get to eat cake ever. Right. So, yeah. So this is the deal. You just have to make peace with it. Otherwise you will always live with a poor me, or some sort of victim-y narrative. It's just not going to serve you. So it's the peace that matters. Make your peace with the effort or the result.
And so some people are listening to this and they're saying, well, wait a second. I do the work. I take my steps. I do my yoga. And you say, yeah, you're doing the work, but you're doing the easy work. What do you mean by that?
So easy work is work that is work. It's totally work. You'll feel exhausted at the end of the day, but you are basically checking boxes. You are being like, okay, I did my 10,000 steps. I did my yoga, ate keto, blah, 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 right? The hard work is work that requires you to change, to be a different person. The hard work requires you to not be on autopilot. You don't get to check a box. It's uncomfortable. So hard work is like, instead of going for another 10K run, because it's what you've done for the last 10 years or whatever, in front of the treadmill while you watch Three's Company or whatever, instead sitting down and meditating and figuring out why you're over consuming the food in the first place. That's hard work. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can't, and this is where the conversation is going to be fun. So many of us want to just exercise it away, but you can't out-exercise what you consume.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's funny because it depends on how you're wired. You're probably wired like me when I just want to eat whatever. I want to keep going. I want to I'd much rather exercise more than eat less. Doing less sounds like that's my hard work. That's really hard for me. But doing the less and just sitting there and, getting comfortable with the feeling of being satisfied but not full, and taking a few deep breaths and coaching myself through the desire to eat more than I need. That's hard work. Give me 5,000 burpees and please don't make me ever do that. So that's the difference.
So before we dive into some of the keystone habits, one of the things that jumped out at me that's really important for people to think about, and I loved how you said it, was I recently wrote a thread on Twitter that went viral that was about compound interest. And I talked about how compound interest isn't just about money. It's about mental, emotional, physical, whatever it is you're trying to improve. Compound interest is your friend. And the example that you gave was Madonna. And you said people try to tie her success to some lucky big breaks that she had versus the reality of Madonna working her fucking ass off every day from 1982 to today. So can you talk about the importance of that consistency and that compounding, and why point in time discipline and motivation and willpower aren't the answer?
Oh my goodness. Well, okay, here's the thing. So a lot of times people are like, oh, if only I had more discipline. If only I was more motivated. If only I had more willpower. But all of those things, they take up enormous resources and energy. So, you can grit your teeth through discipline, through a, hard diet or exercise push or whatever for a little bit. But as soon as anything else comes up in your life that requires extra energy, that discipline, motivation, all of that stuff is going to be out the window, because you just don't have the extra resources to sustain that gritting your teeth through something. Okay. What will sustain you is your habits. So these are things you can just put them on autopilot. You're going to do them. It's there's so many things in our lives that were hard at one point. They required real work. Remember when you learned how to drive? And, I just remember I learned on a stick. And so there's all the mechanics of it. And then there's the road rules. And then there's people coming at you. And then the driving instructor's yelling at it is hard. And today I can get in the car and I can listen to a podcast and yell at my kids and check my lipstick in the mirror. And you know what I mean? You can put things on autopilot that were once hard. And that's how we need to get our habits too. So about Madonna, or I think I also talk about Michael Phelps or whatever. It's when you repeat something over and over and over again, that is how you just become a master at it. And we have this idea that people have a lucky break or they blah, blah, blah. But really they've just been grinding it out. It's a reps game. It's people don't get strong by doing 1,000 push-ups in one day. You get strong by doing 10 push-ups for, I don't know what the math is there, 100 days or something like that. You just keep doing the reps. It's just the reps game. And that's how you become a master. And it's so annoying because the improvement is so incremental and so not noticeable at first. And then all of a sudden it's the compound interest. You're saving up money and you're this isn't doing anything. It's this is never going to amount to anything. And then all of a sudden it's just this amazing hockey stick curve. And it's it grows upon grows upon grows. And the exponential results are amazing. And that's exactly how habits work.
So I really want to emphasize the point that you make there, because there's a couple things I always try to get across to the audience when they start to think of compound interest and consistency. One is small, smart choices plus consistency plus time equals exponential results. And then the last one, because people get really frustrated by the process, is to remember it goes slow until it goes fast.
Yeah.
And so really re-emphasizing what you were saying there with Madonna and Michael Phelps and just being consistent and getting to work.
Totally. And you know what? This is why I really encourage my clients to reward themselves for the habit, not the outcome.
Yes.
So for example, most of my clients are looking for weight loss. And unfortunately, the scale can be a big jerk. You could be doing everything right, and the scale is not going to give you affirmation. Even if you're doing everything right, you could get on the scale, and due to a million different factors, maybe it shows no progress or reverse progress or whatever. And then, so if that is your one metric for success, you will go on a tailspin, and you will probably, either say, fuck it, this doesn't work, or you might try to overcompensate and do some crazy crash diet or something like that. And all of that doesn't work. Slow, steady consistency is what works. And so what you need to do is reward yourself for slow, steady consistency. And, definitely get the data from the scale infrequently to make sure you're getting the results from your slow, steady consistency. But you really have to reward the action and not the outcome, because the outcome is often very much delayed.
That's so powerful. It's definitely delayed for pretty much anything you want to do. Talk about the fact, embrace the suck. You're going to suck for a long time.
Yeah.
Then you're going to be good.
Yeah.
Then if you keep going for another few years, someday you might be great. But
totally,
just embrace the suck.
Embrace the suck. But this is why I'm all about the feel good movement. This is why we have to make the suck feel good.
Yeah.
Right. So this is why I'm always telling people, and they're like, I just need more motivation. I'm like, no, you need to bribe yourself. So for me, I was a very committed sedentary smoker. I could not imagine anything more embarrassing than trying to exercise. And the way I got myself to do it is that I made a promise that I was allowed to watch whatever trashy TV I wanted, only if I was on the treadmill. I didn't have to run. I didn't have to, just had to be moving on the treadmill. So, and if I was on the treadmill, I let myself watch like Jerry Springer, like Maury Povich, so you can picture the era, right?
Yeah.
And, I wanted to know what the paternity test results were. So I stayed on the treadmill. And this is how I started to build a habit loop that associated exercise with pleasure. Whereas before, exercise was like being humiliated at gym class, being the only one out of breath at the top of the stairs. That was not it. I associated so much pain with exercise. And instead, I built this new habit loop that was a trigger. It was 4 p.m. or whatever it was, behavior, go on the treadmill and watch Maury Povich and exercise. And then reward that I get all the fun, juicy excitement of watching these totally naughty shows that I never allowed myself to watch otherwise. And so then I started to build a positive association. And I started to do it more and more and more and more. So that's why I tell people, you got to bribe yourself. You have to build a habit loop that has a reward. And most of the time when people are telling me they're falling off the wagon, they can't stay motivated, blah, 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 it's because they're not paying attention to the reward part of a habit loop.
And so as we start to think of these habits, the keystone habits we want people to develop, I thought I would work through some of them with you, leave some of them in the book for people to read. And it's interesting because some of them, they can seem so simple, but a big thing that people forget is everything in life is simple. It just isn't easy. So it's, if you look at habit one, and this is one I'm really focusing on right now. I've been vegetarian at some points in my life, and probably not surprisingly, whenever I am, I'm actually much healthier than when I'm not. And so the first one we talk about is half your plate, vegetables, half of what you eat in any meal, vegetables. Yeah. And so seems simple in practice, but why are things like this so hard to integrate into our lives?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's so funny because people are always like, Kate, what's the secret? What's the real secret? They're leading it. Yeah. You normally I'd have this behind a big paywall, but come here, I'll tell you. And I'm like, just eat shit tons of vegetables or whatever I'll say, or get some sleep, or don't drink so much booze. Or I say these things that basically we were all taught in kindergarten. And they're like, no, but really, what's the real? I'm like, no, but the secret is freaking do it. Actually do it. We all know there's no secret. The secret is getting yourself to do it consistently. And so with something like fill half your plate with vegetables, it just seems too easy. We're so conditioned to want a big secret. And most of that is marketing. marketing is like the secret doctors don't want you to know about. Like, it's absurd. Why would doctors not want you to know about a secret to getting healthy?
Yeah.
It's so stupid. And we're like, click. What could it be? What are the doctors hiding from us? Or like the weird way that Britney Spears got fit after the baby or whatever. Like, it's all shrouded in this, like, it's got to be complicated and secret, or like, it's marketing. It's absurd. You can't eat more vegetables. There's no product there. There's no secret there, whatever. So that's why, people find it hard to do, because they're really convinced there's got to be something different, something secret.
And so for you, why do you find, as habit one, filling half your plates with vegetable, why is that so key to people being able to lose the weight they want to lose and then maintain the life they want to maintain?
Okay, well, listen, if you fill half of every plate with vegetables, that is automatically going to take care of so much of your caloric intake, of good macro distribution. It's going to fill you up on the good stuff, so you just don't have as much room for the bad stuff. It's going to give you, of the calories that you eat, it's going to be maximum nutrient density, so you feel full, you've got more energy, you can do more, and just that one simple thing of filling half of your plate with big, green, leafy, colorful vegetables. I'm not talking fries here. Then that will just take care of so many things. It's you front load. And I think that also another mindset we have to get out of is that people have been brought up, again, through a lot of marketing, to think of food is bad or certain macros are bad. And instead, I'm like, let's go forward with the positive and just think, fill up with shit tons of vegetables. And then we start to also associate as like, food is good, food is nourishing. I'm allowed to put a lot of food on my plate. It's okay. Yeah.
And for anyone who's ever eaten raw or eaten lots of vegetables, it is almost impossible to consume excess calories if vegetables are a significant contribution to your diet. Dressings aside, because a lot of people are like, I'm vegetarian, but then you see the sauce they put on the vegetable dish and you're like, no, like, that's not what this is supposed to be.
You're a ranchitarian.
Yeah, exactly. Ranchitarian. And you're like, that's probably going to bite you. But okay. So, and then before we jumped on the air, you were asking me how I do some of the things that I'm doing in life. And I said, because I violate one of your keystone habits, which is the next one, which is sleep. And definitely the one I'm most wanting to choose to improve in my life. I have a sleep expert coming on the show Friday, so I'm going to read that book in the next couple of days to get ready for that conversation. But sleep's definitely something I know I need to improve, because when you're not doing it physically, mentally, visibly, you're just not in good shape. So why is sleep so important? And why would even Sheryl Sandberg say that executives should prioritize sleep over working more? And the Dalai Lama say that sleep's the best meditation any of us can do.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. So in the research I did for the book, what I found is that getting, I think it was less than 5 hours of sleep was the equivalent of, so they did cognitive tests on people who were sleep deprived. And it was pretty much the same cognitive abilities as someone who was drunk to the point where they wouldn't be able to drive. Okay. So you're pretty much drunk. And I actually love this comparison, because I've met so many people, probably people in a business type A kind of world, who are like, I'm fine. Who needs sleep? I'll sleep when I'm dead. That kind of like it's a little bit old school, but it's still totally out there. And I'm like, you are like the drunk person who's like, I'm fine to drive. Give me the keys. I can hold my alcohol. It's like the same kind of delusion that makes people think they're great on 4 hours of sleep, makes them think they're great on 4 pints of beer.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoy what you're hearing so far and want me to be able to get your favorite guests on this show, please do me a quick favor. Subscribe to the show and leave me a rating. The 30 seconds of your time will mean a ton to me. Well, can I share a fun digression on that one?
Yes, please.
So when we got our puppy, she's coming up on 2, so pretty much a dog now. My wife said to me, I didn't want a dog. You did. So you wake up for every bathroom break.
All
And over the
right.
course of that first month, she was probably getting up every hour. So I was like not sleeping at all. And I got home in the truck one day and I was backing up into our driveway. It's a downsloping driveway with some retaining walls. And it was beeping at me. And I thought, oh, I'm just a couple inches to the left. Like I always
Yeah.
just bump the curb. I'll be fine. And it was really, really hard to get over that slight bump of curb. And it was really beeping. So I just pressed the gas harder and I backed through our garden straight into the retaining wall.
Oh.
And so then she said, well, how the heck? I was like 4 feet to the left.
Oh.
And the Tesla had a backup camera.
Yeah.
So she said, like, how did you do that? And I was like, I haven't slept for a month. Like,
Yeah.
I should not be driving a car. It was horrible.
So this is really interesting because, you
It's
you
totally
hear all this
real.
research
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, but it's another thing to experience it yourself. So you've experienced this
Oh,
yourself.
100%. 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then here's why I'll say sleep is so important if you are looking to get healthy and lose weight, for example. So if we assume that being sleep deprived is a little bit like being drunk, as it was for Clint, then let me just ask you, when you are drunk, do you make amazing food choices?
No, you make really bad food choices.
That's what poutine
Yeah.
is made. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, exactly.
And-
Exactly.
Yeah. So you
Okay.
don't tend to make and that's real. When you are sleep deprived, you crave high energy foods because you're just sluggish. So you're like, I need to pick me up. I need some sugar. I need some fast carbohydrates. I need like energy dense foods. I need fat. I need, that's real. It's a real thing that you're going to crave that when you're sleep deprived. So you're going to make crappy food choices probably. Are you going to be an amazing like athlete when you're sleep deprived? No. Are you going to give your best
skip your workouts? Yeah. You're like, I'm too tired to work out.
Totally.
Yeah.
Too tired. Yeah. So it's not going to work for you on any level. It also influences cortisol. It messes with your hormones. Like there's a million reasons why you really, really do need to prioritize sleep if you're wanting to change your body composition or get healthier.
And so it's interesting because we're talking about a lack of sleep similar to alcohol, because I mean, that's the next one on the list is no alcohol. And I can say I stopped drinking about 10 months ago. Oh, wow. I'm reasonably certain it's going to be a forever thing. And it's just like everyone's got their own thing. I tend not to, and no, we shouldn't label ourselves, but I know I tend to not have a moderator switch. I always refer to people, like dimmer switches. Yeah. I'm more of a lights on, lights off. Yeah. So I decided I'll go lights off. And it's an absolute game changer. One, like every time you have a drink, it's empty calories. Yeah. Like you're just, when you were giving the pop example, I've always found when you're living a fit lifestyle, not drinking calories is such a simple game changer. Mm-hmm. So alcohol, you're drinking calories, you're getting drunk. So you're eating really poorly. As you said, the poutine comes into it, and then you're not doing the workouts. Right. And you even if you only have that 1 or 2 glasses of wine, there's a level of sluggishness the next day.
Yeah. And it really impacts your sleep too, even if you only have the 1 or 2. And the thing about alcohol is that it's progressive, right? So what starts out as a glass of wine to wind down while you cook dinner, pretty soon you're going to find that, it actually kind of takes a glass and a little top up to have the same feeling. And then that obviously gets, progressively more until, a lot of my clients, when they start, and no judgment, my gosh, I've been there. Like 100%. They're probably at about I split a bottle of wine with my partner every night, right? So they're at about half of a bottle of wine a night. And then a little bit of party time on the weekends kind of thing. And then that's just like, I get it. I really get it. And we can talk about meditation is kind of like, I get that at the end of the day, you need to, I really, really get that. And if you are eating super healthy and you're investing in all the organic stuff at Whole Foods and you got a trainer and you're busting your butt to do the runs and the blah, 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 and you're drinking that amount, you're just like throwing it all away. Yeah. It's all thrown away, all that effort, all that, caloric expenditure, all that beautiful, healthy food you're nourishing yourself with. Like, it's just, and I don't want to sound too judgy because I 100% get it. In fact, the chapter is called Back Away from the Booze. So it's a little bit gentler. Like, I do think that sometimes people, we are more than just fitness machines. Like, there are cultural, emotional, ritual, like there's lots of other factors that are beyond just us being kind of fitness machines. If alcohol is the lubricant you need to like dance at your son's wedding or whatever, I'm like, it's okay if you can have that moderator dimmer switch.
Yes.
But I think a lot of people, the all or nothing mentality, when it comes to booze, when it comes to even things like sugar or exercise or whatever, that all or nothing mentality is the biggest killer. And certainly backing away from the booze is probably one of the best things you can do for your health.
And when you think about the booze and you think about what we've gone through the last 3 years with COVID and as you said, you moved during COVID, I look at it and I see a lot of the people I know. 2020 was that like year of my best life. And I was 3 years ago, I was 42 and I was probably getting in the best shape of my life, like weightlifting, walking 20K a day. Like I was killing it. Moderate drinking because it was best life here. And then I saw like 20, and I want to know if you saw the same thing. As 2020 became 2021, became 2022, it was just like it went from living my best life to I have never drank this much in my life and been so out of shape. And everyone kind of it felt like starting to wake up to that in 2022. Like, I really, to borrow from what we said we shouldn't say earlier, I really got off the rails for a while there. And I have to get life back and not diet or I got to get my habits back in line because I let what was happening in the world and outside of me, I let that get to me too much.
Be more intentional with the habits.
Yeah.
And I love that you kind of said, not do a big crazy thing, because a lot of that all or nothing mentality, it's when people are like, oh, I went crazy, I got to fix it. So they want to overcorrect with a really harsh diet and a really like intense exercise program. And that's when people quote unquote fall off the rails. They go way too hard, way too fast. And really it's so boring. I get it. But what works better is if you just have these incremental improvements. And I know you are like, no, I want to go balls out. I want to fix this by next week. Like I am that personality too. And I wish it worked and it doesn't.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you alluded to the next one that I want to share because it may surprise the listeners as much as it does me. And it's not because I'm not a huge fan of it. I am. I just finished a 2-year certification on mindfulness meditation teaching. And it's the idea that meditating is helpful with our weight. And I think what you alluded to is it's not necessarily the meditation, it's the sitting with ourselves and exploring like, why do I want that cupcake? Why do I, the why behind, why am I reaching for that drink? Why, and bringing intentionality. So what does that meditation look like for you in terms of how does it help us with our weight management and as part of our habit lifestyle? And what does your meditation practice look like?
Oh my goodness. Well, it's really just about when you meditate, as I'm sure you know, you just get that moment of pause between the thought and the reaction to it, So there's a story I like to tell about this. When I was doing a yoga certification many years ago, the guy who was teaching me told us this story about how he was subbing. And he was subbing a class and he was starting the class really slowly with some, neck rolls and connecting to the breath. And there was a woman, and all fitness instructors know this woman. It's the woman who shows up for class and she like whips her mat down in the front and is like prowling around, protecting her space in the front. And like, really kind of, it's a very important thing in her life. And so this woman is there and she was starting to get a little like visibly antsy and impatient with the pace of the class. So much so that he stopped and was like, is everything okay? And she was like, yeah, listen, I got to burn 500 calories. So can we get on with it? And he looked at her and he said, well, maybe if you slow down, you'll figure out why you eat 500 calories too much. And she was like, when I heard this story, I was like, oh my God, I'm that yoga lady that does not want to sit and figure out why I eat 500 calories too much. So that's one of the ways. If you sit, you'll figure yourself out and you'll understand, oh, look, that's triggering me. And this is how I behave when I'm triggered. I also have another option, right? It's also going to help with, a lot of times we are eating or consuming alcohol to relieve stress, to change our state in certain ways. Meditation is another way that we can change our state, where we can go from stress to relaxed at the end of the day. It's also going to improve your sleep, right? It's going to have a ripple effect that's going to help you make wiser choices. It's basically the opposite of being drunk. It's being awake and alert and an adult. And that's what meditation does.
In the, you highlighted something there is that, and it brought up, it was Blaise Pascal who said all of humanity's problem stem from an inability to sit quietly in a room alone. And so it's that, which is like, we're always, okay, well, I can't be alone. So I need to be watching a show or doing something or eating or getting rid of that alone feeling. And so just learning to do it and be present and increase that, to your point, the gap between the stimulus and the response is where as Viktor Frankl says, where the magic happens is so beautiful. So we've given 4 of the habits. For more habits, you'll have to read the book, Healthy as Fuck, which is a wonderful title. I saw it in chapters and took a photo and said, Leslie, we need to talk to Oonagh. This looks good. And so let's skip past the remaining habits and we'll talk about the point that exercising consistently is what matters. And so many people are, Oonagh, what's the best workout? What's the one thing I should be doing? And your point is, well, you don't have to worry about the best way to train until you're actually training consistently. Right? So what does that look like? And why does everybody just want that magic silver bullet workout?
I mean, it's again, marketing. Like you see, oh my gosh, Clint, like I hope you don't spend as much time on the internet as I do, but if you do, then you see like, well, I'm sure your targeting is different, but like, it's constant. Do this workout to get rid of, oh my gosh, like get rid of your pooch, get rid of your, oh my God, hip dips. Have you ever heard of hip dips? I had to Google what hip dips are.
No,
it's something we're supposed to be horrified about. It's like a totally natural shape of your hips, which now there are supposed workouts to fix. And it's all total BS. There is no workout that will remove fat from any part of your body. You didn't ask me that, but I just want to scream that on a mountain because that's what so many people are like, can you give me a workout that's going to get rid of this or whatever? I'm like, you can do a workout. Actually, what's going to get rid of fat is usually a caloric deficit, which was best achieved through food. And if you want to do a workout, then you can do these kind of workouts that are really effective for, the maximum caloric burn in the minimum amount of time, but you cannot choose where the fat's going to come off of. So that's the deal. So, and in the book, I tell a story about someone saying, she was like, Oonagh, are Zumba workouts the same as yours? And I was like, no, not really. Like Zumba workouts would be like, a moderate intensity endurance cardio. I kind of do more HIIT and strength training, which is more effective for weight loss because of A, B, and C. And I'm such a dick that I said that because this lovely person had found a movement that she loved. And I basically took a big poo on it. And it's so not poo worthy, by the way. I love Zumba. Zumba's great. And like the difference of effectiveness between Zumba and like my, fancy schmancy trainer HIIT and like strength training workouts is so minimal versus the difference between not doing anything and doing Zumba. Like there's not doing anything. Yeah. And then like way up here, there's like walking. Walking is amazing. If you walk 10,000 steps a day, and that's an arbitrary number, but like just walk more, basically, you are making huge strides towards your fitness. And then if you start to elevate your heart rate, even better in any way, it doesn't matter. And then if you start to do a little bit of straight resistance training, then that's amazing. Like it's all good. Just do whatever you're going to do and then just keep doing it and keep doing more. Like that's the simple formula. And try and make it as enjoyable as possible. Like the one thing, if I could choose one muscle for everyone to train, it's the enjoyment of moving your body. So if that is Zumba, if that is yoga, if that is walking while talking to your sister who lives across the country, if that is dancing to your favorite music in a kooky outfit in your living, like anything, just do that and keep doing that and keep loving it. That's your job.
And I don't know if you've ever heard this statement. Like it's one of the things we say for young people who we're trying to get into reading, or even adults who you're trying to get into reading, is this idea of read what you love until you love to read.
Yeah.
And so it's, hey, if Zumba is what you've really loved and you're going to do it consistently, do Zumba until you get to the point where you're like, hey, I just love exercise.
Yeah.
Is there any different exercise? And then it's like, oh, well now, just this can be a bit better for you, but let's get you to love exercise. Let's get you to love movement before we worry about refining exactly what movement you're doing.
Totally. Yeah.
So now we've got some habits. We're exercising consistently. What are some of the other tips and tricks that our listeners should be thinking about as they're working through these habits in order to build and maintain them?
I mean, really, I would say the value of small wins. And the small wins are so important. It's about, I love that you gave that image of the dimmer switch versus the on and off. And the small wins are kind of the antidote to that. So here's, I talk about breaking up with your BS. And your BS is just the limiting stories that you have in your head about why you don't want to do your habit today. And then you'll start to come up with amazing reasons, like awesome reasons. Oh, okay. Like, yeah, I know. I said I was going to get up at 6 and do my workout, but I feel like I'm coming down with a cold. So it'd probably just be better to lay in bed. Like, or like I worked out really hard yesterday, or I'll do it later. Like you're going to have this parade of BS that's going to go through your mind. And so you won't. And if you're super skilled and you're meditating on top of a mountain for 5 years, you'll be able to listen to that and detach from it and not believe it at all. Most of us aren't there yet. To some degree, we're going to be like, yeah, poor me. I don't have to do my workout. And so here's where we need the small wins. You're going to bargain with yourself. You're going to say, okay, I'm going to get up but I'm not doing that workout. I'm just going to do some easy stretches in my living room while I listen to my favorite podcast or whatever. So in order to make the habit completely bulletproof, you need to come up with the smallest, teeniest, tiniest, stupidest versions of them. Like, I'll just put on my runners. Like, that's it. Then you can say, I fulfilled my habit loop, but you don't get to just lie in bed and skip it completely. You have to do a little teeny, tiny, tiny version of it. A version that would be, you could never convince yourself you couldn't do it. That's how stupid and small it is. And in doing so, you're reinforcing that habit loop. And also, you'll probably find that once you get up and you put on your running shoes, you're going to be like, fine, I'll do one jumping jack or whatever, your ego will make you take the next little step, even though you didn't think you wanted to. And you're also reinforcing your identity as I'm someone who does what they say they will do. And when you start to believe that about yourself, that's what changes you. You start to have faith in yourself and knowing I'm the kind of person that does what I said I'm going to do. So when I say I am going to lose weight, save for retirement, blah, 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 I am. And that is a very different feeling than, oh, I don't know, I just need more. You know what I mean? Like that lack of faith in yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you and I are older, given your TV show references, that Ricky Lake could have probably been in there too. So we've been probably dealing with learned different ways about habits so long ago. Like for me, almost anything you need on habits, like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People has it in there. But James Clear is beautiful with language. And so what you were just referencing there is every choice we make is a vote for the person we want to be.
Totally.
Like the absolute, it's like, oh, James, you took what we already knew and you put such beautiful language to it. And now anytime you talk about habits, people are like, oh, that's from Atomic Habits. You're like, no, we had habits before James Clear got here.
Yeah.
He did not create habits.
Yeah, my book came out a month after James's. And of course, I wrote it without having access to his. And then, of course, when it came out, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, you wrote one of those like habit books like James." And I was like, "Oh."
You're like, no, I wrote that for 3 years. So like,
Yeah.
I didn't. We both read this book and this
Yeah,
research,
exactly.
and this
book, and
research
book.
article, and this and this, and so there's
Totally.
anyway. So I love that. Do you have time for final 4 questions unrelated to the book?
Sure.
Okay, let's do it. So what's one book that's been really influential for you in your life?
Well, geez, I was just telling you about this one.
That's right. That's right.
It's so good. And it came out like a week ago. It's called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. And it is one of the best business books I've ever read. I am so excited to implement everything in this book. I sound like an ad because I've been squawking at all my friends to read this book all week. It's fantastic. And it's about, if I say it's going to sound maybe trite, I'm probably not going to be the best, but it's about figuring out what your zone of genius is and what your value is. And then if you can get anyone to do anything for less than that, you get them to do that. And therefore you get to spend more time in your zone of genius, and it's like exponential rewards that keep building on themselves. And there's beautiful things about management in there and leadership. And I'm just so inspired by it. It's a really easy read too.
I'm reaching out to him right after this show. That sounds like absolute magic. And one of the challenges with the show now is that I tend to only be able to read books for people that are coming on the show, because that's 52 books a year. And there's only so much time, because you've told me, like many others have, that I need to start sleeping more. So love that. What are you reading right now? Well, you're reading that one right now, but is there anything else? So we have another book that.
Oh my gosh. Oh, another one that I love that I reread annually now is called Hero on a Mission by Don Miller. Do you know that?
On a Mission? No.
Oh, it's so good. He talks about the Cartman drama triangle of the victim, villain, hero. And he also talks about how in any story, you have the hero who goes on a mission, who overcomes adversity, who's got a guide who helps them go through all these things. And in doing so, they change and they become a different person. And that's every story. That's Star Wars. That's, like Luke who goes on a mission and Yoda helps him. And then he has to change and not be such a wuss by the end of Star Wars or whatever, right? Like there's a big story. And it's the same story in every movie. We are conditioned for this story. And yet many of us are living our lives like we're watching the movie, or we are the victim in the movie, the one that needs to be rescued in the movie, instead of being the hero who takes on challenges in order to overcome these challenges and become transformed. And that is what gives our lives a sense of purpose and meaning.
So take control, be the hero in your own movie.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Which we all should be striving to do.
Totally.
Oh, yeah. I love that. What's one thing that you've spent less than $1,000 on that you look back, let's say over the last 18 months, that you look back and say, darn, I should have bought this sooner?
In the last 18 months. Well, I will say, this is so cheesy, but my AirPods, because I can work out, because I also consume a bazillion books a year, and I listen to audiobooks while I'm doing it's one of my habit loops. I hate doing my physiotherapy, but I love it because I can listen to my books while I'm doing my physiotherapy. We don't have a dishwasher, so I do dishes and I do physiotherapy, or I call my mom, and so having hands-free AirPods, I will say I'm grateful for these every day. So it's just like silly, dorky thing.
I love that. Such a great idea. And it's actually quite often the answer on the show and other shows where I've heard the same question. Everybody who gets their AirPods loves them. I know. Yeah. I always have mine, similar to you. I throw on the weight vest, go for an hour and a half walk with the dog, and just have an AirPods on, listen to one podcast, then go AirPod-less for the last 20 minutes or so, almost like a little bit of a meditation, and happy as a clam every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this one's more like over your life, because the show's about growth. What's one habit, mindset shift, or behavior change that you've done that has had the most impact on your life?
Well, definitely, getting fit physically. I described a little bit. I was a sedentary smoker. And even, quitting smoking, there's so much about my background that although, I don't have a lot of times people will be coming to the fitness industry and they, basically came out of the womb doing cartwheels, and they had a big sportsy background and all that stuff. And I had none of that. And although that was a hard journey in a lot of ways, I'm so grateful for it, because I really feel like I get it with my clients. Like I 100% get it when they tell me, I remember telling my doctor when they were like, why are you still smoking? I was like, it's my treat. It's my way. It's like my reward for doing life. And so when my clients tell me that about a cake or booze or whatever, I'm like, oh, honey, I get it. I get it so much. So I really feel like having that background and going through that process of, transforming to be a different person, because what the biggest shift there was, there was a long time that I was not smoking right now. I have quit smoking, but I was still like, but I'm still a secret smoker. Like, oh,
yeah.
I'm like,
well, when I have a drink, then I do it, or after a good meal, or when I'm with my friends.
Or even if I didn't, like, even if I hadn't actively smoked in years, I still like thought of myself as a smoker who was kind of, on pause for now until I don't know what my until was. And I thought I could pick it up when I got older after I had kids. I don't know what my plan was there, but I just always thought of myself as a smoker. And it wasn't until I started to think of myself as this, because I had these ideas of like smoker equals cool, creative, alternative. Like I had all these stupid ideas about being a smoker. Non-smoker, I thought was like goody, boring, rule follower, blah, blah, blah. So these are like things that somehow I came up with when I was like, 13, stupid. And I like had to completely re-imprint that. And there's a lot of people who have similar thoughts about even something so simple like eating popcorn at the movies. Eating popcorn in the movies is like fun, treat, reward, blah, 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 blah. And not eating the popcorn in the movies is like deprivation, extreme, or like whatever. And we have these imprints. And so having gone through that experience, I believe it helps me so much with my clients.
Now, what if you get no butter on the popcorn? Is that still bad?
Well, there's a continuum, I would say.
I love movie popcorn. And it's bad because I watched a lot of movies in my life. So I've eaten a lot of popcorn. It's like probably my number one, to your point, number one binge. Okay, so where can our listeners...
I know people's thing.
Yeah. Where can our listeners find you? You've already mentioned one website. Anywhere else you want them to go look?
Yeah, sure. So fitfeelsgood.com is all my health and fitness stuff. And I am I'm like kind of embarrassed to say this. I'm kind of building up my personal brand, OonaghDuncan.com. And I've got my new podcast. I just started a podcast. It launched a couple of weeks ago. It's called Goals, Grit, and Some Woo-Woo Shit. And we talk about that. We talk about
I love that.
Hardcore goals, having the grit to persevere to get them, and all that woo mindset stuff. That's really the key to getting it all happen.
That is a fun one. That's all the stuff I enjoy. So we went pretty wide. We went pretty deep on the book. Is there anything we missed that you want to make sure the listener gets?
Oh, if you can buy my book, Healthy as Fuck, I think you'll like it. It's really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate having you on.
Thank you so much. I love this conversation. Appreciate it a lot.
If you like the podcast, you'll love our new newsletter, The Growth Guide. Every Thursday, straight to your inbox, with the goal to help you be better, achieve more, and become financially free. Check it out at our website, thegrowth.guide. Subscribe and learn more.